Mamie me belle, mais la moustache et la capucha. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki takatiki. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Sito patamilo, milata katiki punetika. Mamie me belle, mais la moustache et la capucha.
What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show. And today is my sports rundown where I sit up there and tackle all the news that I felt was interesting from the world of sports this week and all the stuff that was happening. At the end of the show, I have a new segment that I'm going to bring out, and I can't wait to do it because I think it's one that all of y'all will enjoy. So with that, let's talk about sports story number one that I found interesting. College coaches whine about the NIL to Congress. Now, I talked about the NIL before and how coaches are whining and complaining about it, but in reality, they really want to attack the transfer portal. Here we are again, where Nick Saban and a bunch of whiny coaches went to Congress and complained about it, how the NIL is getting out of hand and it's not fair to schools and all this type of stuff. But the thing about it is that none of these coaches ever complained about their salaries getting out of hand when they were getting $10 million a season, $7 million a season, $5 million a season, and this is for college coaches. And yet and still they're sitting here and have the audacity to go in front of Congress and complain about the NIL because they no longer have the ability to store guys on their team anymore. And not only that, they get mad because they may want to pay one guy more money or get more NIL money than another guy. The fact that they always want to bring up the NIL is something that's not right or fair. Not only that, what is it that you want from these guys? Here we are, we got the NIL going on in both basketball and football. And what we're seeing is that more guys are staying in college now. We're actually seeing guys graduate at a higher rate now due to the NIL. Not only that, we're seeing guys graduate at a higher rate. We're seeing more females graduate at a higher rate because of the NIL. And we're talking about student athletes. Because now there's no rush for them to get to the pro level, because at the end of the day they see the benefit of what's going on. Not only that, they're getting the opportunity to learn that they're going into what is a real business. And with the transfer portal involved, a good example is Cam Ward. Cam Ward went from Washington State University all the way to Miami. So he went from one coast all the way to another coast. So guess what? He will be able to adapt when he gets drafted to wherever he's being drafted to. And not only that, he'll also have an understanding of what business is. So for them to complain about the NIL, and yet we're seeing a higher graduation rate because of the NIL, and guys staying in school longer because of it, what's the problem? Now you don't want people to graduate from college anymore? You don't want them to take college seriously anymore? I mean, yeah, they're getting paid, but isn't that something? So don't go whining and complaining to Congress, because Congress got better things to do, like get our country back on track, or get up there and actually do something about making sure everybody gets paid fair wages and things like that. They actually got things to really pay attention to. They ain't got time to be paying attention to some stupid old NIL stuff. Again, a lot of y'all coaches could easily say, hey, you know what? That $10 million you was going to give me, that's way too much money. Give me $1.5 million. In fact, give me $700,000. That's perfectly fine for me to live off of. And let the kids have the money. Nah, y'all won't do that. But then y'all got the nerve to go in front of Congress and whine, mope, cry, and complain about the NIL. And then Nick Saban is up there because why? A punter told him that he was going to go to another school because he wasn't given an opportunity to play. Yeah. Don't harass Congress about something that's a non-issue. NIL is something they don't have time to pay attention to. They need to pay attention to the homeless problem that we got going on in our country. They need to pay attention to why people are struggling out here to pay for basic stuff and why these companies keep going up on everything. So again, don't worry Congress about something as stupid as the NIL. Take your butt back to where you need to go and enjoy your retirement off of all the money you've made from college football. Next story. The next story I got is RG3. RG3 was on the Punchline podcast with Marlon Humphrey, in which RG3 talked about his time in Washington. Now, just recently, RG3 and Jay Gruden got into a kerfuffle regarding their times together in Washington, in which I basically said, straight out, both of y'all need to shut up because you both failed. Now, here's RG3 again. And there's one thing that I absolutely hate, is I absolutely hate people who sit up there and have selective memory, right? It's amazing at how RG3, so one of the comments RG3 made was that he said, man, I did not know how dysfunctional the organization was. I did not know that the owner and the head coach had beef with each other. RG3, do you not remember that you were part of the reason that the owner and the coach had beef? Like it's amazing. He forgets to tell people about that part. He forgets to tell people that the reason he failed in the NFL was because of him. He forgets to tell people that. Then he made another comment in this same interview where he said, you know what, my second year, what should have happened is I should have sat up there and actually took time off and recovered from my injury before I started playing again. No BS. That's what Mike Shanahan tried to do. Mike Shanahan tried to sit up there and give you a break for 4 games be starting the season so you could recover. And remember, you had Adidas sit up there and do this whole marketing campaign where it was all in for week 1. All in for week 1. And you seem to forget somehow, some way that you were the cause of it. You forget that you didn't heal because you wanted to get back on the field too quickly. You could have still been in Washington, had a very good career if you would have sat your dumb butt down and actually learned something. Don't sit up here and think that for the hottest of moments that you was this super intelligent quarterback. You, at the time, you only had one read. You only had one read. Not only that, you had the audacity to sit up there and disrespect a coach whose legacy is all over the current NFL. all the guys that come from the staff that he put together, and now the staff that his son has put together, are littered throughout the NFL as head coaches and assistants all over the place. You had that much coaching talent in the building, and you did nothing to improve yourself because of it. You have Robert is walking around like he's walking around this world with this idea that it wasn't his fault. And he's going on podcasts talking about, I didn't know that the owner and the head coach had beef. I didn't understand the type of dysfunction I was getting in. And he had the audacity to go to a coach, in the coach's face, a Hall of Fame coach, a coach whose legacy is throughout the NFL currently. He had the audacity to tell this coach in his face that it was unacceptable to have him running the ball as much as he do. A quarterback who could only read one part of the field. He had the audacity to say that to that coach. Robert is on this selective memory tour. And everybody has to remind him over and nobody ever checks him on it either. Nobody. He goes on interviews and nobody checks him on his stuff. Nobody. And that is where we always have our problem with a guy like Robert. He's always one of those guys that ends up in a situation where selective memory has somehow been beneficial to him. Robert failed because of Robert. Robert didn't fail because of the dysfunction or the beef between coach and owner. No, Robert failed because he felt he was bigger than the team. Robert felt he was bigger than the team and he already knew everything. And he found out very early on he didn't know nothing. So, Robert Griffin, stop having selective memory, and actually go out there and admit that your failure in Washington had more to do with you and your ego and less to do with any type of dysfunction on the coaching staff or the ownership. It was you. Next story is a story that it's a troublesome story, but it's a story that needs to be talked about. Dak Prescott was recently sexual allegations came up against Dak Prescott recently. Now, the reason why this is a story that to me is one that is troublesome is because you don't want to disregard anybody's you don't want to disregard anybody's feelings or experiences or anything of that such nature. The problem that I have is that this comes at a point where the Cowboys right now are struggling financially. They look like they're struggling financially. They did nothing on free agency. It looks like from all things that Dallas might be a team that might go down the ranks this year. And with that all being said, they got to pay Dak Prescott an astonishing $59 million this year. And then magically out of nowhere, with the understanding that they're going to have to pay him that much money, Dak Prescott, who we've never heard this type of allegation before about him, now has a sexual allegation from 2017. 7 whole years ago. Now again, I don't want to sit here and make it like I'm discrediting anybody, but it just seems kind of ironic that every time NFL owners need to pay up guys when it comes to paying for their contracts and stuff. All of a sudden, these guys get into some type of weird problems. Remember Deshaun Watson? Same thing happened with him. He was negotiating with the Houston Texans, didn't agree with the whole thing with the Houston Texans. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, bam, he got all these sexual allegations happening. All these sexual allegations came up. Not only that, the owner's attorney was the attorney for all the women who brought up all these allegations against Deshaun Watson. So now, here we are now, several years later, and now all of a sudden, with the understanding that there's a chance that they got to pay Dak Prescott $59 million, and they're probably, I'm assuming that they're over the cap because they done let so many of their key players go. I mean, very key players. Dallas has lost some major key players, major key guys. And now you have to fix it all up again. And you're in trouble. And we might actually see Dallas not be that good this upcoming season. And a sexual allegation from 2017 comes down the pipeline when you got to pay this man $59 million. I'm not saying that none of this is true. I'm not saying that this stuff is true. But sometimes when there's smoke, there's some fire. And for me, it just seems like it's amazing at how we've never heard of these type of allegations about Dak Prescott before. And out of nowhere, he has one from 2017 that just appeared out of nowhere. So it's sad to hear another quarterback go through this type of thing. But it just seems so coincidental when it comes to money. It just seems coincidental. Next is something that I have to talk about, and it's something in regards to the differences in quarterbacks. And sometimes I don't like to make things racial, but sometimes it's in your face. So to me, I give the example of Daniel Jones versus Sam Howell versus Justin Fields, right? Daniel Jones has been able to fail over and over and over again in New York. And actually not play a full season. I think the year before he played, I think that was maybe his last full season. But prior to that, he's never played a whole season. Not only that, he's never been the best quarterback that New York could have gotten or had. They've lost a lot of talent around Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones has just never gotten better. And yet and still, Daniel Jones get chance after chance after chance, to the point at where they signed Daniel Jones to a big contract, but yet let Saquon Barkley go. Not only go, but find his way to a division rival. That's crazy. Then you get Sam Howell. Sam Howell is traded. The Commanders fleece the Seattle Seahawks. And they trade Sam Howell to Seattle to swap positions in the third round. And also swap positions, I think, or rise up in the fifth round. All that for Sam Howell. Justin Fields gets traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 6th round pick with still 2 years allocated to his contract. Now, this is where I have my issue with this whole thing. I say it all the time, and I've said it before, white quarterbacks get the absolute opportunity to truly fail in the NFL. Whereas black quarterbacks don't get that same opportunity to do it. Like, you sit up there and you look at Justin Fields. Justin Fields, when you really think about it, can you sit up there and say that Justin Fields is in fact better than a Daniel Jones? When you really think about it, you can possibly say that Justin Fields is in fact better than the Daniel Jones. in regards to being able to throw the ball and if he had weapons around himself and stuff like that. Say if Justin Fields had a Saquon Barkley available to him, what would Justin Fields be right now? Then you sit up there and you talk about a guy like Sam Howell. Again, a guy that if he wasn't throwing as much as he was, he wouldn't have had the numbers that he did. And not only that, they blamed and his failures, like the thing about some white quarterbacks, their failures are blamed on the offensive coordinators, whereas black quarterbacks, it's their fault. It's never the white coordinator. I mean, you look at somebody like Kellen Moore, who gets job after job after job and can fail constantly and still find a job. Then you got Eric Bieniemy, who's out of the league, Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator, but he's not the only one. Also, Byron Leftwich is out of the league, Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. Nobody ever blames these white quarterbacks for their failures. Like, if you really think about it, the only white, and this is something that I have to say, the only white quarterback who was legitimately blamed for his own failures, well, no, two, Ryan Leaf, and the other one is Zach Wilson. But even with Zach Wilson, he's going to find some way to get another opportunity. Just like Sam Darnold, just like Blaine Gabbert, just like Mitchell Trubisky, just like a whole bunch of them that end up absolutely do nothing in the league. Do nothing in the league. But yet and still, somebody like Justin Fields, you telling me they can't get more than a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields? Justin Fields, you can't get more than a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields. And here's another thing. Chicago fans, I'm going to say this, and I hope you guys don't get mad at me about this, but I think you guys you will understand what I mean with what I'm saying. Ryan Poles has legitimately made a huge mistake. A huge mistake. To trade Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick tells me you weren't on your job well enough to understand what you needed to do. First off, you sat up there and let languish Justin Fields. You let him languish, sitting in a place that you knew for a fact you was not going to move forward with him, and you waited and waited too long. You let Atlanta sign Kirk Cousins, and Atlanta fans, I'm going to get to that too. But you let Atlanta sign Kirk Cousins when you think about it, and this is something that I've said, I always feel that when you draft a quarterback, if he has top level talent, you get his top level talent guy or one of his top level talent receivers to be with him. You should have traded Justin Fields to Atlanta, and I'm pretty sure Atlanta would have been okay with you asking for Drake London in return. Like, understand this. This draft is a draft where its abundance is wide receiver. I'm pretty sure Atlanta would have been okay with giving up Drake London. You would have been able to draft Caleb Williams because, again, Caleb only has 3 targets here in the NFL. That's Drake London, that's Amon-Ra St. Brown, who you know you're not going to get from Detroit, and the other one is Jordan Addison, who you know you're not going to get from Minnesota. So why would you not make it a point of giving Caleb Williams a weapon he would be familiar with, and you waited so long? I'm pretty sure Atlanta would have given you way more than what you could have even imagined when it came to what your trade value would have been. I'm pretty sure the Jets would have gave you more. The Jets would have probably gave you a player in return. But no, instead, you let Justin Fields languish on your bench. You sat up there and took your time, and now you're in a situation where now you got nothing more than really a 6th-round pick. And what's even more crazy is that Baltimore traded a aging offensive lineman in Morgan Moses to the Jets to move up to get a higher pick to move up several slots. I think they went from 135 to 113 to pick in the 4th round and got a 6th round pick for an aging offensive lineman. And all you got was a 6th round pick from the Pittsburgh Steelers for Justin Fields. That's all you got? Ryan Poles may have to look for a new job. Because, and not only that, you also traded away a 4th round pick for Keenan Allen, who is a wide receiver that in reality is identical to the guy you already got in DJ Moore. Oh, man. Ryan Poles, he better hope Chicago is special next year. Because, man, if they aren't, his trades are going to look disastrous in his tenure. So, man, I don't even know what to say. Now, with Seattle, Seattle gave up way too much for Sam Howell. But also, Seattle fans, you might need to start questioning John Schneider and his decisions. John Schneider has sat up there and made quarterback disaster at the quarterback disaster. Now, here's something y'all all need to understand. Yes, he did draft Russell Wilson. But do y'all remember that same year, in free agency, he signed Matt Flynn. He signed Matt Flynn to be the starting quarterback. You know what stopped Matt Flynn from being the starting quarterback? Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll saw that Russell Wilson was the better quarterback. He saw that. So imagine what it would be like right now. Because understand this, Pete Carroll is now gone from Seattle. And understand, John Schneider has put his whole career constantly on the line for guys that aren't that special. Again, he was the one who signed Matt Flynn in free agency to be the starting quarterback the same year they drafted Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson was supposed to be the backup. Pete Carroll understood that Russell Wilson was the better player. Then, as time goes on, Geno Smith comes here, and Geno Smith starts. Guess what? John Schneider makes the trade to trade Russell Wilson to Denver. In return, he got Drew Lock, who he said was one of my favorite guys coming out of the 2019 NFL draft. Well, guess what? If it was up to John Schneider, he would have sat up there and would have found a way to get Drew Lock to be the starter over Geno Smith. But Pete Carroll came in and said, no. He's not that good. So, nah, we're going to run it back with Geno Smith again. Yeah, did Drew Lock get to play? Yeah, he did. But, now, all of a sudden, John Schneider sticks his neck out there again for another quarterback in Sam Howell. And now that he has his new coach, who might not be as forceful as Pete Carroll in saying, nah, that guy isn't my quarterback, this guy is, we might actually see Sam Howell start games in Seattle. And more than likely, Sam Howell, who will be learning his third offense in 3 years of being in the NFL, we'll probably see him fail again. And at that point, John Schneider should be questioned if he's even legitimately a real general manager, or is he just a walking disaster waiting to happen? He's going to, because again, you're talking about Matt Flynn was one of his guys. If it wasn't for Pete Carroll, Matt Flynn would have been the starting quarterback. If it wasn't for Pete Carroll, Drew Lock would have been the starting quarterback over Geno Smith. And now that there's no Pete Carroll, there's nothing in the way of Sam Howell being the starter. Nothing. And John Schneider has put his neck out there 3 times for quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens in the upcoming season. Because if Sam Howell has to start games, I don't know how good he'll be. Next is, I'm going to talk about it, free agency. This goes to my Kirk Cousins thing. Atlanta. Fans of Atlanta. People of Atlanta. Hear me now. Hear me loud. Understand this. If you guys don't win next year, the Kirk Cousins signing will be a disaster. Kirk has been the quarterback he has been the whole time. And now you're getting him coming off of an injury. So now the little bit of mobility he had may not even be there. So now you're talking about the possibility of having a completely immobile Kirk Cousins. So now you're in a situation where you can be sitting there with Kirk Cousins, paying him all this money, guaranteed him $100 million, and you still may not win. Not only that, understand that Kirk Cousins has been in 2 different places where the talent around it was wasted due to Kirk Cousins, and that his contract, it was the reason that a lot of the talent ended up going away. Ask the Washington Commanders. Ask the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings built the team up. The team only needed a quarterback to basically put them over the top and win the Super Bowl. They got Kirk Cousins, and look at them now. Kirk Cousins is now out of Minnesota. Didn't leave, didn't tell them he was sorry that he didn't get the opportunity to win them a Super Bowl. Didn't apologize that he wasted all the talent that was there. Didn't do none of that. Oh yeah, he inflated his stats. Inflated them like it was nothing. But he left not an apology. Nothing. Watched as that team deteriorated. It was one of the strongest teams on defense. Completely collapsed now. Was one of the best teams when it came to offense. Do you understand that when Kirk Cousins got there, they had an in-prime Stephon Diggs, in his prime Adam Thielen, in his prime Devin Cook? All 3 of those guys, talents all wasted, gone. Gone. And now Kirk Cousins is gone out of Minnesota. He's made his way to Atlanta. And Atlanta sat up there and paid him a huge contract for Kirk Cousins. Atlanta, if you don't win it all next year, be ready for your talent to be wasted. Because guess what? Don't Kyle Pitts come up next year? Kyle Pitts comes up next year, doesn't he? A lot of these guys, the talent is going to be wasted. A lot of them. Because again, y'all signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. Kirk would walk away as one of the richest NFL quarterbacks ever, without ever winning anything. So again, Atlanta fans, I don't know how many of y'all are happy about that whole thing and about that Kirk Cousins signing, but I'm going to tell y'all, if y'all don't win next year, y'all not going to win with Kirk. Y'all just not. Should have made the deal for Justin Fields, but hey, y'all would have came out way cheaper with trading for Justin Fields than signing Kirk Cousins. Just my opinion, but it is what it is. Now, I will say this. Also, with free agency, I also had my early Super Bowl pick to represent the AFC. Now, don't get me wrong. The AFC is going to be dangerous this year. Kansas City, I think Kansas City going to fall off. I think that Travis Kelce is on this Taylor Swift boat. And I think that next year his skills will diminish. and he will have probably one of his worst seasons ever. And somehow, some way, Taylor Swift is going to do what she does with a lot of her boyfriends. She's going to dump Travis Kelce. He's not going to be the same player and all that. So I think that Kansas City goes down. The Texans are going to be a dangerous team. I still feel they need some growing to do, but they're going to be a dangerous team. My early Super Bowl pick to represent the AFC is the Baltimore Ravens. When you've matched up a destructive force with an immovable object, you get Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield for the Baltimore Ravens. You already thought, well, we already knew that Baltimore had the most devastating running game, and that was without top running backs. Now you've got yourself a basic atom bomb in the backfield. When you talk about pairing up Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, there's no way that any team will ever have enough talent and enough players to stop the two of them when it comes to RPO situations. It's no way. And I'm going to tell y'all something. Don't be surprised when we see the Baltimore Ravens barreling down on teams this year when it comes to the run game. Like, we will more than likely see Lamar Jackson go to maybe a 2-3 read type of thing. Maybe that. But we're going to see the most devastating running game ever created in the history of the NFL, because it's already impossible to stop Lamar Jackson, but it gets even more impossible to stop the Juggernaut. You know, the Juggernaut is one of those guys that when he plays, he just plays, and he doesn't stop. He doesn't go down easily. The crazy thing about it is that just as much as he runs over people, guess what? He's just as good in the passing game as well. He catches the ball very well out of the backfield. So again, when you pair up a destructive force with an immovable object, you get the atom bomb, and that is going to be one of the biggest situations you'll ever see. So again, like I said, man, early Super Bowl pick to represent the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. Last but not least, last thing on the sports rundown is NCAA brackets are here. Teams have been selected. I know y'all ready to put y'all brackets together. This is going to be one of the more interesting NAACP tournaments we've seen in a very long time. There's no clear-cut team that is better than everybody else. We will see some major upsets this year, like major upsets this year, even though it's not like we've never seen major upsets before. But I think we're going to see a whole lot of number ones go down, and it's going to be something really amazing, because this is one of these seasons that you sit up there and say, man, I don't know who could win it all. I mean, because normally, you know how most people are. They pick ones, they do the ones, but there are a lot of the 16 seeds that are upset possibilities. I mean, even when you think about a team like Stetson, these are teams that can actually make some noise and disrupt this whole thing. So again, the NCAA, it's happening. Get your brackets together. Like I said, this is gonna, if you don't do your extensive research, you might be in a situation where your bracket can go down very early. And we saw it last year happen. So many teams, so many people, their brackets were over in just the first round. So, like I said, you get your brackets together, get it all done. The teams are set, their positions are set, but don't be too confident about how these teams are going to play this upcoming season. Last but not least is the new segment, and that new segment is called It's All Cap. I'm going to record that so I can always have that in there, so I ain't always screaming that all the time. But the new segment is It's All Cap. Now, this is where I hear a sports story and it's like, It's no way that this is going to be true. It's no way it can be true because of the ramifications that could happen with it being done. So here's the it's all cap. Here's the it's all cap story. So the story that's out there now is the possibility of Justin Jefferson being traded. Now, that's not the cap part of it. The cap part of it is that there's talks that the trade is going to happen with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I personally don't see how in the hell Cincinnati is going to be able to make the trade for Justin Jefferson, pay Justin Jefferson after already paying Joe Burrow, and still have to try their best to pay Ja'Marr Chase as well. And try to also build the rest of their team up and keep a lot of the rest of the guys up in that team as well. Yeah, this story is all cap. There's no way in any, and I'm not saying, you know how they say never say never. I'm not saying never. But I will say this. If Cincinnati made that trade, that will be the stupidest trade they could ever make. Because at the end of the day, there's no way you're going to almost blow your entire cap on 3 guys. Just 3 guys. And it's going to be even more difficult as the years go on because, again, these guys' contracts don't dwindle down. They balloon as the years go on. So there's no way you're going to be able to pay Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, and Justin Jefferson, and all them account almost what? Maybe $175, $150 million against your cap for just 3 guys? Nah, that's not happening. So y'all who are out there who think that this might be a true possibility, it's all cap. But y'all tell me what y'all think. How do y'all like the new It's All Cap segment? Other than that, y'all tell me what y'all think. What do y'all think of some of the other stories that I've talked about in this Sports Rundown? Other than that, this has been your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.